Hi, I'm Dr. Kim. I used to run a nonprofit organization in Nepal, and about 20 years ago, in our small clinic in Kathmandu, my group got handed a very important decision. On one side was the life of a 12-year-old girl. On the other side was the well-being of thousands of people. The decision also involved $30,000, which was a lot of money for my little nonprofit group. Lives were at stake either way. I'll tell you what we decided in a minute. But first, you need to understand the distortion that almost made the decision for us. In the second video I had released, I discussed the 3 distortions that can make smart people bad decision makers. Today we're discussing the second distortion, the distortion of time. So today I'm going to give you a fix for that issue also. It's called futurizing. So the problem is what psychologists call present bias, meaning we are biased to the present moment and not really thinking about the future. This has happened because through our evolutionary history, we have evolved to prioritize immediate survival and not long-term thinking or planning. So whatever's happening today carries enormous psychological weight, whereas what's going on 5 years from now barely even registers. So even when 5 years from now is exactly when the decision's real consequences live. So present bias doesn't always announce itself that it's here. It shows up in the choices that don't feel like they're about the future at all. Maybe you skip a workout today, or you use your credit card even though you're in debt. Maybe you avoid a hard conversation with someone. We do all those things because today's needs or discomfort are real, but next year's consequences don't really register. I like to say today is loud and next month or next year is quiet. None of that is weakness. It's the standard operating system of every human brain, weighing today's feelings far more heavily than tomorrow's reality. Now back to Kathmandu. So as I said, I ran a nonprofit organization in Nepal for over 25 years. We were called CWB, Compassion Without Borders. And about 20 years ago, a girl I'll call Mita was brought to our clinic. 2 years earlier, a kerosene fire in her family's kitchen had burned roughly 80% of the front of her body. And the burns had healed into a mass of scar tissue covering her legs, stomach, chest, and her beautiful face. She was also in pain every single day. Here's what those scars meant in Nepal. This is important. Marriage in Nepal is a woman's economic foundation, her social standing, and often her physical safety. A visibly scarred young woman would most likely never find a husband. So her predictable trajectory, if we didn't help her, was that she would end up on the streets of Kathmandu and become a beggar or a prostitute. And those weren't the worst case scenarios that I invented. It was the real possibilities of the future for a girl like Mita. Now, there was a German nonprofit plastic surgery hospital in Kathmandu that my group had often worked with. We took Mita to them. They assessed that she would need 8 to 10 reconstructive surgeries. The cost to us would be $25,000 to $30,000. But at the same moment, we were planning to dig water wells in the foothills of Kathmandu, where people were getting very sick from contaminated water, and people were even dying. $30,000 could have built a lot of wells, protected dozens of villages, and thousands of people. So here's the decision, and this was a tough decision. Do we spend the money on one girl, or do I spend it where I could save more lives? What a tough decision. Now, to bring this back to futurizing, if we had focused only on the present moment, the wells probably would have won out because the need rate then was urgent, it was immediate, people were dying, and it was happening to my fellow human beings right then and there. But Nepal had taught me to not decide that way, to not rush into my decisions. What I did instead was I ran both futures ahead. On one path, the wells could get dug. On the other path, Mita's scars would harden into her fate. So what I did was I futurized. I took these two ideas and I thought about Mita and I thought about her life in 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. Then I thought about this poor girl if I didn't do anything in 3 years and 5 years. What would be happening to Mita? I already knew. What would happen to those people, though, if we did not go dig the wells? Either way, we had such a tough decision. But Futurizing revealed something really important that present bias had hidden. Money is replenishable, but a childhood is not. So we kept fundraising because there would never be a chance for us to rebuild this girl's lives. My decision, and the decision of my organization in the end, was to pay for Mita's surgeries. The hospital decided to let us pay in installments, and the wells did move forward also because new donations arrived. Mita completed all 10 surgeries, and just before COVID took over the planet in 2020, I was able to go to her wedding. So let's talk a little more about Futurizing. How does this strategy actually work? So it works by asking, if I make this choice today, where does it lead? So you're not predicting the future because we can't do that. Like nobody could have promised me there would be a wedding for me to attend. So glad there was. What you're trying to do is identify the direction that your decision will point you towards. The way a small turn of a ship's steering wheel doesn't determine your destination, but it does determine which way you're traveling. That's kind of what we're trying to do with Futurizing. So there's 3 basic steps when we futurize. First, you want to define your options very clearly. Try to not be too vague because a vague idea of what you're thinking about will produce a vague projection into the future. So try to be very specific in what you're thinking about now and what you're projecting into the future. Step 2, try to project each option, whether I do this or I don't, forward. Not just about tomorrow, but look at 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And don't project, like I said, too vague or be too abstract. Project your life and what your life will be like with that choice. Who do you become on each path? That's kind of what you're trying to think about. And which path does your future self want to live in? That's the big question. Step 3, look for ripple effects from your decision. Don't just ask what happens next, but ask what happens because that happened. So you make a certain choice and there's this ripple. See how far that you can look out. Look as far down the road as possible. And you really want to think about what direction you're going and what that future consequence will look like from your decision now. In a sense, you're looking for the chain reaction of your decision, almost like dominoes falling from one gentle push.